Welcome to a very exciting quarterfinals match. This time it's last year's European champion Sparrowhawk1 versus Lemonade. Both players rather experienced in this tournament, and Sparrowhawk is bringing a Galakrond Rogue, a Galakrond Control Warlock, a Highlander Mage, and his Galakrond Aggro Warrior, which is banned. I assume Lemonade saw how well he performed with Aggro Warrior last time. And Lemonade is bringing a Galakrond Zoo Warlock, a Highlander Galakrond Rogue, a Galakrond Warrior, that being the more control-oriented variety, and a Highlander Hunter, which is banned. Also just generally a very strong deck. We've seen that banned a couple of times, I believe. And we're seeing right away Lemonade's Warrior versus Sparrowhawk's Warlock. Yikes. Lemonade having a bit of an awkward starting hand. So does Sparrowhawk, although for the more control-oriented deck it's not even that bad, especially because you have Dragonblight, you have the Nether Breath, you have the Sack Pact for healing, so definitely more questionable for Lemonade, who also decides to get rid of most of it. So does Sparrowhawk. Gets the Whirlwind, I guess. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have kept the Spirit, but Snip Snap can come down on 3 if you need to contest the board. Both decks not particularly aggro-oriented, so you can get away with having suboptimal plays. And here is a Town Crier. That's the kind of stuff that you're looking for. Draws himself a Maniac to invoke his Galakrond later, and means he has a turn 4 play. Sparrowhawk just taps. Obviously the Town Crier not necessarily worth a use of the Nether Breath. And either we see Snip Snap or Hero Power here. Ooh. We see Spirit and Hero Power, knowing that he can play the Maniac next turn and potentially kill something with it without having to kill the Maniac, that is. And Sparrowhawk having a couple of options here, decides to go for the Dragonblight Cultist, which I assume we'll see instantly destroyed by the Maniac without the Maniac taking damage because it's invincible due to the totem. Although Awaken is also a pretty solid play this turn. Happens to just deal with your opponent's board perfectly. You can deal with it with the Maniac as well, the difference being that if you do it with Awaken you can deal 3 to the face, actually 4 to the face, between the Town Crier and the upgraded damage from the Invoke, and you don't deal any face damage with the Maniac. Also Whirlwind works, but that doesn't do anything, so I think Awaken is definitely better than Whirlwind, although you could, of course, play the Snip Snap alongside the Whirlwind. It seems like he's going for the Maniac, just thinking that that is his most mana efficient play, which is very valid as a reason. The question now that we're going to see is, yeah, he does go face with the 3 damage from the Invoke rather than hitting the Imp, which is definitely a valid choice, but that does present some possibilities here for Sparrowhawk, for example, Sack Pacting it to get himself some extra health. And with a Maniac he can also then kill the Spirit and then still pact the well, he could pick any of his imps really, but yeah, if he decides to kill the I was about to say if he decides to kill the Rhino, that's definitely because of the imp being alive, but then again, coining the Mortal Coil would have done it as well. And we definitely see Sparrowhawk taking control of the board a little bit here, but a card like Awaken can still turn that around instantly, and we could just see Awaken Ritual Chopper, trade the minions in, deal 7 to face, trying to push it here, taking the more aggressive role. Both of those decks are somewhat similar to their aggro counterparts, that being the Galakrond Aggro Warrior and the Galakrond Zoo Warlock. I think the Warlock is more similar, but just due to all the Awakened cards, you have a lot of similarity anyways, and as we saw earlier, Lemonade's Galakrond Warlock also running Leroy, as most ones do, by the way, so that is also just more aggro potential right there. Big Taunt, of course, very helpful, but Whirlwind Execute would deal with this board perfectly. decides to go just play Kronks, deal with it next turn, draw his Galakrond, try to get a little bit of tempo going. Speaking of Kronks, I believe I saw correctly, yes, there is a Kronks drawn for Sparrowhawk, so that would enable him to also draw his Galakrond this turn if he so desires, knowing that he will then, however, lose the Shield of Galakrond the turn after. He has his Galakrond also, if I'm not mistaken, invoked 3 times so far, so playing a Maniac first would enable him to finish that up, and that seems to be what he's going for. Another breath, sadly, from him. Oh right, Galakrond is on hand, I didn't even see that. So yeah, obviously you want to keep the Galakrond now fully upgraded. You want to keep the Kronks then, of course, to deal with, to use the Devastation once the Galakrond comes down. My bad. Scion of Ruin is a good pickup here. Is it an argument to then not play the Faceless? To not play the Galakrond? Maybe. Faceless not really that impactful right now. Galakrond has the problem that he still isn't fully upgraded. He needs to invoke 1 more time to upgrade him, but also we just don't know when he's gonna draw the next invoke card, of course. If he could guarantee that he gets it in a turn or 2, of course, get the Claw. You're pushing so much damage already. You'd rather want to be able to deal that 5 extra damage right the turn it comes down. But also, you just gotta draw those big minions to swing the board somewhat soon. Runs into the Twisting Nether a little bit, but if Sparrowhawk's Galakrond comes down right now, that also means that Twisting Nether becomes less attractive, but there might be some good trades as well. Ooh, that's not what you're looking for. Usually, there is a lot of smaller demons currently in the game compared to a lot of other times, but nonetheless, you usually expect to get at least 1 bigger one. So this is very unfortunate for Sparrowhawk here. And we're gonna see the Maniac come down for Lemonade saying, I'm gonna wait for that Claw. And then he can... yeah, he uses his face to deal with the Voidwalker, the Scion, the Devoted Maniac, and Whirlwind to deal with the taunt, the other taunt, and then can use the... ooh, yeah, it is a decent amount of healing for Sparrowhawk, but it seems that in a lot of aspects Lemonade's still ahead. Of course, Sparrowhawk just holding more answers on his hand, and now having the ready Kronks, which is a very impactful thing in and of itself. And does he go for the drag or does he go for the buff? Because it looks like he was trying to set up the buff, but I was about to say that the drag is still more powerful in this situation. So it looks like we might see Galakrond here as the counter to the Kronks. Doesn't directly counter it, but there is definitely one play at least this turn. Ziliax is huge. And ooh, decides to execute the dragon. That's a good play. Hasn't used it all game, and now he's saying, okay, I got this. I have control of the board. We got huge facelesses. We've got a big Ziliax if he ever does need to heal back a lot of damage, which, you know, he can make full use of that right now. Of course, kind of somewhat preemptively. We see Sparrowhawk flopping down his own Ziliax. Not, of course, nearly as strong as Lemonade's Ziliax, but I'll be interested to see what we get. I think it's gonna be Rover and Faceless. Yeah, the small Rover, big Faceless. Because they're immune, Sparrowhawk's not gonna get any healing off of the lifesteal from Ziliax, which is very important when you're trying to push damage. Of course, right now, Lemonade in control of the board, which means there's a very real possibility, of course, that we will see Plague of Flames or Twisting Nether come down right now from Sparrowhawk. I personally like Plague of Flames better, by the way, if you have to pick one, because that allows you to be relatively even about your trades. You can also sack pack one of the imps first, which I would probably recommend, because you're only need to kill 3 things. So you can sack pack one of the imps, go back to 21, Plague of Flames, clear the board. and then you can still like hero power or something after that. You could Twisting Nether right now. You could then still sack pack 2 of your imps first, just because it's more mana efficient right now. I think I would have taken the healing here, but fair enough. He still has the option to do it later. That is assuming there is a later, but there's nothing that has charge in Lemonade's hand right now. Leroy wouldn't have done it, so I guess it's not pressing, but still, at least now you kind of still, so you're still forced to do it, I think, because the 10 damage, kind of no matter what, you have to deal with somehow, and if you do that, then you might as well have already gotten the healing last turn rather than having to hero power and then sack packed the hero power result this turn. So, oh, that's why he didn't do it. He goes for Extraza. A theoretical buffed Leroy, which could still be on hand, because we still have the Zilliax there. Plus hero power would have been like 2 off, so that, in my book, that's still a bit risky to be at 15 health, but I mean, Quartermaster, Cobalt Lackey, that's a little bit of a stretch, but it would definitely been possible to find something there. Decides not to play the Lackey for the faceless, instead going for the hero power and 3 extra damage to face. Knowing that he can push a lot now, or while he's still ahead, and if you're behind, it's really hard to push damage here, so that's what he's thinking, I assume. Sparrowhawk, hero power, coils one of his own imps just to get another draw. That's Crazed Netherwing, and then I assume sack pack the other, because you still don't know if your opponent has a buffed Leroy, and it's too dangerous not to heal there. You have to always be above 13 until you see the last buffed card. Now we see the actual Leroy drawn here. Deathwing Mad Aspect is a really good choice right now, I would think. It's gonna be a 12-1. Dark Skies deals with it, but decides to not even play it. Keeps it as a more control-oriented tool. And I guess we're gonna see Taunt Divine Shield. And that is it. Deals another 3 damage to the face. Just continuously pushing a little bit of damage while always developing the board, keeping Sparrowhawk in reaction mode and slowly pounding down on that health. And Sparrowhawk can play Dark Skies, but his hand isn't very full. So that's gonna be, what, 5 damage? And then you can probably Nether Breath to get both some healing and some damage in there, and then the shield as a big-ish taunt and a little bit of extra board presence with the imps. Corcoran Elite is pretty good. Leroy plus Corcoran is 10 points of damage whenever, but that does prevent hero power, which is why he plays the Corcoran right now, which makes perfect sense. And Plague of Flames is a big pickup here, because you have to deal with this board somehow, and honestly Plague of Flames might be the best way to do it. So that was a good top deck there for Sparrowhawk. And I guess we're just gonna see the hero power right now. Keeps the claw up because he is once again behind a little bit. He has to react to the board state. So pushing 5 damage right now doesn't do anything for him, but potentially clearing a bigger minion might save him. And plays a Crazed Netherwing for extra stats. Scion of Ruin deals with that pretty well. Deathwing is also possible though, which then leads him to have a 12-5, which, I mean, deal with that, right? You can hit your face in, but then you're at 2 health. Let me correct you myself, then you're at 0 health. Well, -1. But, so, Dark Skies doesn't do it. So, you have to, like, hero power Dragonblood, sack pack one of the things, go up to 16, and then hit the claw in, I guess. But then you're also dead by Leroy, or even by a Corcoran, which of course we know that Leroy is the card that Lemonade holds, but yeah, he just gets his health up. And that's really all he can do at this point, and that is GG. That is 1 in 0 for Lemonade. Winning with his Warrior early, and the Ritual Chopper would also do it. So yeah, 1-0 Lemonade. Lemonade now having to play his Highlander Galakrond Rogue or his Galakrond Zoo Warlock. Sparrowhawk still having all 3 decks open, and the previous champion already behind 0-1, so that's not exactly what you expect to see in this match. But then again, you know, Lemonade also a very solid competitor, and taking away nothing from him here, of course, he is doing a lot, and Sparrowhawk barely losing, so we'll see what they decide to pick next and how that will go for them. Second match, going back to the Galakrond Control Warlock, is Sparrowhawk. Lemonade bringing his Highlander Galakrond Rogue. Praise Galakrond, great card early on, not necessarily something you want to play on 1, because then the only target is your opponent's minion, although if you go first, not even that. Underbelly Fence, very good starting card. Zephyrus on hand for Sparrowhawk. It's not a Highlander deck, so it's not as good on 2 as in some other decks. We see a lot of cards being thrown away. Zephyrus on starting hand now for Lemonade. That could be impactful. Also Dragon Queen, but that's, you know, whether you draw that on turn 9 or if you have it from the start is kind of a little bit different. Do you play Zephyrus or do you just play stats here? Well, Zephyrus has the same stats. He decides to go for the hero power, playing it very conservative, trying to get the maximum value out of all of his cards. Sparrowhawk just taps, tries to get some more cards as well, and Dragon Sword plus Underbelly Fence is pretty good here. Reese has decent stats, but picks up the Elise because it's a Highlander deck. Decides to not even play the Fence for stats right now, instead just re-equipping that dagger, playing it slow, playing it conservative, and Sparrowhawk has nothing to play here really on his hand, so we might just see him tap again. Let me see how many cards does he have. That's 9 cards, so yeah. Decides to obviously not tap because you're overdrawing one, so he's finish rights, get at least some stats on the board, get the Galakrond developed, and this might be a good point where we now might see the Underbelly Fence, just taking out one of them, and then weapon take out the other, re-equip another fresh dagger. Once again, keeping it slow, just solidly controlling the board and saying, I'm gonna win eventually. You don't have to like push it early. Has a lot of value on his hand, knows that his opponent has a lot of self-damage just by tapping, and so that's what he decides to do. Double coil just to get rid of the Underbelly Fence, reducing the damage he's gonna take and also drawing one more card. That being a Christ Worshipper, which is really good once you have invoked twice. At least probably not what you're looking for right now, but honestly, if you can clear up that hand a little bit, getting an extra Zephyrus and Dragon Queen Extraza might honestly be one of the best things you can get. A little awkward here with the 1 health Faceless, but also Faceless Rager, that is, and gets the extra health. I assume we're gonna see Dark Skies just clear it up, but speaking of Dark Skies, second one drawn makes the first one of course more expendable because now you have a Dark Skies whenever you need it still. And you could play Ziliax as well, but that doesn't deal with the other 2 things, and then, I mean, it's perfectly valid. I think those are the 2 obvious plays in my mind. Decides to tap, which doesn't prohibit Dark Skies, and that is exactly what it's doing. Plays Dark Skies, deals with everything. And how many cards are there on hand? That's 5. Honestly, I don't mind Elise here, because then you just get second Zephyrus, second Dragon Queen. You get all the impact plays whenever you need it, all the answers whenever you need them. Decides to go for the weapon instead. I'm not sure what he's exactly looking for Zephyrus here. If he's trying to think, get something else like what's his face? Oh god, there is other cards in the deck that are probably worth copying. That being said, I think that Whelp would also not even be the worst, but I think that copying Zephyrus and Dragon Queen is just such a good opportunity, and putting the 5/5 stats on last turn would have also been very helpful. I don't necessarily see the dagger play there, but that's fine. Christ Worshipper, of course, now active, but the hand also very full. Kronks is on hand. If you want to draw that Galakron, this time he doesn't have it. What do we have here? Oh, that isn't the Worshipper, right? Yeah. So, a lot of cards on his hand. No real reason to like stress over answers or anything. Kronks seems like a solid play, gets him some stats, draws him the Galakron. Does of course mean that he can't play the Kronks later with the Galakron, but knowing that the Galakron is a very big impact play, he decides to still draw it. And trades off some of the board. And even heals himself up back to full, knowing that the rogue can push some damage sometimes. Evil Miscreant drawn, of course really good with the little Sky Raiders to enable combos. Assassinates the Kronks, it appears? Maybe not. Nope, assassinates the Kronks. And I would say play the Miscreant. Yeah, maybe he plays Sky Raider and re-equips the weapon because, you know, that's what he likes to do. But I like Miscreant here. And so does he. Gets himself a Faceless and a Titanic Lackey. I think it's Plague of Flames that was picked up there. Yes, it is. Not necessarily what you're looking at right now, but always good to have. Of course, a lot of minions at 1 health and no Mortal Coils left. Second time that those would have come in handy as well. That's not saying I disagree with the previous play, but just pointing that out. Godfrey would kind of flee the board, but it's also very awkward because you're still leaving the summoned Mechanical Dragon, and Godfrey's stats himself aren't even that good. Galakron is not ready, I believe, not fully, no. So, playing him is possible, but of course for maximum impact, especially in these sorts of matchups, you might be looking for that. Might not be the right choice. This time, of course, not because of the claw, but really just because of the 2 extra demons that you're gonna summon. Ziliax just taking care of stuff, or maybe not. No, decide. Oh, Ziliax and then Plague. That's interesting. Decides to deal with the board right now, not wanting to have that 7/7 on the board. And Henchman Burglar picked up, plus a bunch of lackeys, Mechanical Whelp possible. Plays the Face Lackey, just starting to develop the board. Titanic Lackey picked up. Nope, it's Henchman Burglar. Ooh, I guess Astral Rift is not even that bad. Sets pick Ancestral Spirit, probably to put it on like a Mechanical Dragon later. Mechanical Whelp later, so that he can get himself 2 Mechanical Dragons out of that, which is perfectly valid. As a matter of fact, it seems rather strong. And I saw correctly that Sparrowhawk just picked up the Dragon Queen. Oh no, it's a regular Astraza. Never mind. Right, obviously. Which does mean that his Nether Breast and Crest Netherwing and all of his Nether things are now active. And plays the Netherwing right away. We might even see another Breath coming down to deal with the taunt, so he does. Kind of gets him that health back from the Crest Netherwing. And Leroy drawn here, that might come into play later. Was instantly picking up the Elise, so we know what he wants to double, but then he realized he doesn't have the hand space to do it. Now next turn he does. Saps the Netherwing. That's interesting. Preventing some face damage, but also giving him a good board clear next turn, although, well, overdraws him a card. You knew it couldn't be Galakron, but there was still some other good impact plays that you could burn, and it was the other Netherwing, so sapping the Netherwing, got rid of the stats, did nothing else pretty much. So that's, I guess, solid enough. Dragonblight Cultist, it appears, coming down right now. Just contesting the board a little bit. This turn the board isn't quite that scary if you don't deal with the Whelp. Of course, once a Whelp dies, there's another Whelp and a 7/7. Gets rid of some cards on the hand, healing back to full and drawing some cards of Worshipper. 2 invoke triggers there as well, so if he plays one of those, his Galakrond is going to be finished. And still has the option to play Zephyrus, which is now active, or Nether Breath. Nether Breath's the face. There's some aggressive play since his health is full. And I guess we're gonna now see Elise come down. And that means you now have double Zephyrus, double Dragon Queen, and double Leroy, and double Siamat. You have all of your impact plays twice. And even plays the first Zephyrus right now, saying, hey, look, I have 2 Zephyruses. Deal with it. Edwin, let's see, he's played... Well, it will be his 3rd card, not very impactful. Evis deals with the board very nicely, so it makes perfect sense. Tyrion not playable this turn. And Zephyrus just loves him somehow, though. Let's make some math happen. Godfrey's a little awkward because you don't have anything at 4 health. Is there any good... nothing for 3 mana that you could do. I don't think Zephyrus would give you Moonfire, although it would be great to have it. Dark Skies doesn't do enough. I think he has 10 cards on hand? Yeah, 10 cards on hand. So, against the 16 health on the board plus a Death Rattles, that's still not even that much. Crazy Netherwing is pretty solid, but also doesn't do too much. I'm gonna see Dark Skies come down anyways. And that board just got bigger. And the Netherwing doesn't quite reach for... yeah, I guess you have to play Godfrey now. That does leave the 1 dragon at 1 health though. Which means that, let's see, 12 from Leroy, 19, 20 damage from Lemonade's hand and board here. I was thinking about Seal Fate. Honestly, I quite like Dragon Queen. Just hit your dragon in, deal some damage. Play the Dragon Queen, establish a bit of a board. Emerscale Drake is not even bad. And then the Explorer giving you another dragon. Maybe you can find a Dragon Queen. Nope. Malgo's a strong. Fairy Dragon might be the more playable one though. And just pushing 8 points of damage. Doesn't even push the 8th point of damage, but now we're probably gonna see some Invoke, like a Maniac plus Plague of Flame sort of a play. Would not be surprised here. Clears up the board perfectly, but then you have to deal with the same board again. And Lemonade also always playing the copies, letting his opponent know that these are the cards I copied. That being said, because those were the 4 leftmost cards in his hand, if he plays them, and Sparrowhawk pays attention to where they came from in hand, that's not necessarily extra information. But I think Plague is right now the main way to deal with this. You could go Zephyrus into Twisting Nether, but the end result is very similar. Brawl would also work. That would be cheaper but riskier. So let's go with the Twisting Nether. Clears up the board. And if I'm Lemonade, then I might say why not do it again, right? Decides to go for the Maniac, Fairy Dragon, and probably also the Lackey. Who happened to face Hero Power, doesn't even play the Lackey, knows that the 1 point of damage might be important later. And I think we're just going to see Galakrond here from Sparrowhawk, with Lemonade giving him a second to breathe and not having to worry about the board. Nope, plays the Netherwing. And a shield to back it up. Now, of course, that... Ooh. Double Leroy is 12. You have to get rid of the taunt somehow, of course, so you play Siamat. I would assume Rush Divine Shield. Maybe Rush Wind Fury, yeah. Wind Fury keeping the Netherwing off of his face. Not absolutely necessary in this situation, but it makes sense. Seal Fate to get himself an extra Lackey, also gets rid of the Imps. Anubiseth on hand. If that dies, then the Leroys are going to be really deadly. Although you gotta keep that a little bit, also the health, gotta keep an eye on that because you could at some point potentially also just get it anyways. we're gonna see the Galakrond, and I assume that we're just gonna see the same counter as we saw from Sparrowhawk earlier. Just Zephyrs into Twisting Nether. I mean, you're still getting very low on health, but there is nothing that summons anything as a death rattle, so it's very safe to do that. And picks up the Shadow Step too in case he needs it. Although he might keep it for later Leroy use, with the Nubuseth potentially producing a very strong counter there. Picks up Twisting Nether. As fun as Sack Pact is here, it's just not impactful enough. And that will be that board. Let's see, what do we have here? I mean, the Dragon Queen is probably going to be the play for Sparrowhawk. Just keep the pressure on while you have it. Doesn't have anything on the board that he has to deal with, so that gives him the opportunity to do something like just establishing board. Decides to establish his board in a different way, and plays a bunch of Invoke cards, and establishes a bit of a wider board that just isn't as tall. It's more reliable. The Dragon Queen would have probably been better stats, although with the Fiendish Rites there is a lot of stats on the board. But still, you're looking at 15 attack on the board here, and the Dragon Queen would have been 8+ here. Arcane Explosion looks pretty good out of Zephyrs, although it doesn't quite kill the last guy. Maybe something like Holy Nova that also heals your face. I like Nova here, because that's one of the very few sources of healing that you have. Lily X now has no targets anymore, but you can just taunt up the Zephyrs if you like. Yeah, looking at that Anubis, it's hard to play it, but once you do, you're gonna get some pretty big Leroys. Well, it's a death rattle, but you kind of assume that it dies, right? Ooh, Fatigue. Didn't even think about that. Lemonade still has 10 cards in deck. So if you can keep the board... There's a Chrono Breaker, I think, and a Nidhogg. That's gonna be a very sticky board, of course. No, I guess you could kill the eggs. Never mind. I was thinking about the Death Rattle Eggs, but it's still, whew. We see Celiax come down right away, dealing with one of the eggs. Zephyr's dealing with the other. And then putting on the shield. Just have a third taunt. Pushes some damage slowly. Of course, now every point of damage matters a lot with the fatigue. Alexstrasza still on hand, so he will be able to heal back to 15 at one point, but that also is a very tricky thing, right? When do you use your Alexstrasza? Because there is points where your health total is very scary, but also the later you use it, the more use you're getting out of it. Maniac comes down here. And the question is, yeah, no, he can deal with it with trades. Leaves a 1/1 alive, which is not inherently that threatening. And now, if you eliminate, there is 12 damage in Leroy's and no Shadow Step to use with them, but that's a little awkward. But Tiamat comes down. Once again, probably Rush Wind Fury and just clears out two of the biggest threats. Pharaoh Cat could potentially give you something good, could also give you Colossus of... Actually, it's not even that bad. It's a impactful play. Draconic Lackey picks up a Dragonmaw Scorcher. That's very strong against all the imps. And just controlling the board, knowing that he wins the fatigue game. And yeah, Sparrowhawk will not really be able to find any damage here is the thing. And once those Leroys come down, it's over. I mean, obviously, you're not going to play them before it's over, but again, just the amount of health that he has just has to take 4 points of damage somehow. And then Leroys are just lethal. It's a bit of a tough situation to be in. He can keep pushing as much as he can, but also knowing that he can't really take any damage. Dragonmore Scorcher, of course, deals the board perfectly. And we might just see then... Oh, no, never mind. It's just... oh, no, it's backstab. I don't know what exactly the idea here was. I guess he was just thinking sticking the Leroy, but it doesn't really matter too much. But now the thing is, Sparrowhawk can't quite clear the board and play Alex. That's very important. Because if he could, then that would be really good right now. Now, Hero Power Plague of Flame steals with the board, and that's probably either that or Twisting Nether, which is about equal. Is probably necessarily given. And I like the Plague of Flames better in case your opponent produces a wider board at some point, but you also know there's a Leroy on hand. So, that's lethal either way. So that's a Twisting Nether Hero Power, but I mean, it's just going to be Leroy and Dagger producing a 2-0 for Lemonade.
Well played.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, that, wow, Lemonade taking a 2-0 lead. And Sparrowhawk saying one of the Earth was this game. Yeah, this was a wild game, and Sparrowhawk still having the full selection, knowing that Lemonade will now have to bring his Galakron Zoo Warlock, which is his most aggressive deck, so with Sparrowhawk's more control-oriented lineup, definitely still a shot of taking that down, but you still have to win 3 times in a row, so that is very tough to do. And we'll see what Sparrowhawk picks here. Of course, not much of a decision for Lemonade. We see Sparrowhawk sticking with his Warlock, saying, I know this deck can win. And I know, especially in this matchup, this deck should win. We're playing decks with a little bit of overlap, and mine is the more control-oriented one. So he says, you can't out-damage me, and I can definitely out-control you. Oh, well, you can't out-damage my control, rather. So, Lemonade pushing the turn 1 Flame Imp, very strong impact, of course. Decides to tap on 2 rather than play the Juggler, knowing that there is no turn 3 follow-up play, which I guess is fair enough, but also you have to consider that if you win early. So, the longer this game goes, the more it favors Sparrowhawk. And we're going to see an early Nether Breath here, just healing back to full, dealing with the biggest threat currently on the board. And we might just see Lemonade tap again. We might also see him play the Knife Juggler now. Yep, plays the Knife Juggler, knowing that he has Fiendish Rites next turn. And no counter currently on Sparrowhawk's hand, so he might also just tap now. Or he coins out something for Crazed Worshipper for Veiled Worshipper, sorry, for stats. That's possible, yes. Speaking of Veiled Worshippers, 1 picked up for Lemonade, very important in this matchup because, or generally in this deck, because you know you're going to play your cards fast, so having that refill is very important. Fiendish Rites, picked up and played, of course. Oof. Yeah, decides to hit the face. No good trades here, really, because the Imps trade way better with it, and your opponent's probably still going to take that trade, so you're just going to want that extra damage. Very understandable. Plays the second Worshipper, once again, just for the stats. And Dragonblight Cultist drawn. Although I do actually kind of like Fiendish Rites and Grim Rally, maybe even Faceless Corruptor as a direct impact play, being able to kill the Veiled Worshipper, keeping a 4/4, very strong play. The plays that go wider, of course, less susceptible to Plague of Flames, but also just very strong amount of stats that you have there. And now you could look into something like Fiendish Rites and Grim Rally, hit the Faceless into the shield, and hit the Imp to face sort of a play. Oh, sorry, yeah, of course, I still like the Fiendish Rites here, because then he lives, taps, gets an egg. Also, of course, Galakron already, I believe, just upgraded. Yeah. So, the Dragonblight Cultist would also get him to just needing one more upgrade to get the demons right away. Maniac plus the existing imp deals with the board. And I think if you're Sparrowhawk, you're basically happy with every turn where you clear the board and you leave something on your side of the board. And I like Juggler Dragonblight here. Juggler, Scarab Egg, Dragonblight would make perfect sense. Decides to go for... Oh yeah, he emotes that was a mistake. Obviously you want to play the egg first. But fair enough, small difference, it's just one less attack on the cultist. But it dies either way to the board, and Majesty creates Netherwing come down here. Push 2 damage to face and play the Netherwing, clears the entire board. Galakrond still needs to be upgraded once to function. Veiled Worshipper, of course, can likely draw one of the invokes that he needs. And yeah, decides to go for the Netherwing here. Does bring Sparrowhawk into a very low 13 health. So very important here that the Galakrond isn't upgraded, because if it was, then you're already instantly going down to 8. Decides to play it anyways. There's not currently any charge demons, but there is big demons. Does of course play it right the turn before Twisting Nether becomes active, so that could have dealt with it. Of course, Ziliax and the existing board does it too, despite getting already pretty good stats. So I think if I'm Lemonade, I would have waited here for the more impactful upgraded. Oh, the Sack Pact is so big in this matchup too. And now Sparrowhawk's ahead on the board and in health, which is not exactly what you're looking for, but I guess Lemonade played the Galakrond early to have the Krongs. But now what? Yeah, deal 5 to other minions, clears the board, but that's probably not what he wanted him for originally. And plays the Juggler after the Voidwalker. That's 1 point of missed damage right there. Godfrey could clear the board, but it seems kind of wasteful right now. Maniac, Plague of Flames does it too. And that appears to be what Sparrowhawk is going for right now. Plays the Water Maniac and Plague of Flames right after it. And just 1 point in health behind and still keeping control of the board. Veiled Worshipper seems like a very good play right now. And depending on what you draw, you might just play another one. Yeah, why not? Another one. And you might even Hero Power. Actually, I like the egg. The sidekick isn't bad. Plays for the extra stats here. Of course, the Genius next turn could potentially be pretty good. This also, by the way, still dies perfectly to Godfrey, if you want to use that. And let's quickly see, I didn't see that fully. Oh yeah, that needs 1 more upgrade as well. So Fiendish Rites at any point enables Sparrowhawk to get his Galakrond out with the full impact, and those 2 extra minions are going to matter a lot. Even right now, with the, where the health is at, the Claw might matter. Not even necessarily talking about the fact that it also has a control tool, and once again playing the Dragonblight Cultist first. So that's once again a bit of a misplay. You could have played the Scarab Egg first. You could have popped it first and then played the Dragonblight Cultist. So I would argue there's some stats lost there. And we might see the Ethereal Lackey come down. You're probably looking for something like Grim Rally. Twisted Knowledge might be the best choice here. Because you're getting 2 Warlock cards, one of which might be a spell that can be useful, or even a strong minion. So let's go for Mortal Coil here. Kind of more reliable in what you can expect to get out of it. And draw very important, but arguably generating 2 cards might be better than drawing 1. That's obviously debatable. Also dealing 1 damage and saving 1 mana there are relevant at least. Twisting Nether clears the board off, and Shield of Galakron plus Faceless doesn't even seem too bad. I'm gonna see here about Mortal Coil, knowing that he can play the Faceless at any time, and he draws another Sea Giant. Crazed Netherwing does deal with most of the board, and then the Nether Breath actually would kill the shield. The question... Wait, those aren't even Nether Breaths, are they? No, oh no, those are the Phoenix Rite. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, they cost 4. That's very different. No, there was another breath though. See, plays another breath first to get the healing, very important. 12 health, still not exactly what you want to be at. And maybe just rinse and repeat, huh? Shield, hero power, maybe play the faces this time. Nope, still goes for the hero power. Whiteboards are probably one of the harder things to deal with for the Control Warlock here. That's kind of where cards like Godfrey come in, which has of course been played already. And also, despite only having, what, 6 cards in this deck, the Zephyrus is not active. 5 cards in the deck. Zephyrus still not active. That's gotta sting a little bit if you're Sparrowhawk. Plays the Cultist right now. Galakron fully upgraded, of course, and that could be the play that turns the game around later. Lake of Flames, Shield of Galakron reestablishes the board. And if you're Lemonade and you don't draw anything good, you might just play the Giant. I mean, you still could Hero Power and Void Walker, because those effectively are free with the Giant, but yeah. Hero Power, Void Walker, Giant goes down to... Oh, right, the second one is 1 cheaper. Right, it's just ever so barely allows them to play them both, which is very important. And now you're in reaction mode a little bit if you're Sparrowhawk. Can you afford to play the Galakron? And if not, what else do you do? I guess the other option is just Zephyrus into a board clear. And that appears to be what he's going for. If you do that, of course, you pick off the Void Walker and hit the 2 1-1s into the face first. But that's not what you wanted to play this turn. That being said, of course, once you have removed this board, you're taking away most of what Lemonade had as like a big board swing turn, and after that you're relatively safe, I would argue. So, plays the Zephyrus, playing it slow, playing it safe. Twisting Nether seems like the obvious choice. Big Game Hunter is actually not even that bad. But not being able to take out that second Giant is of course important. We see Twisting Nether come down here, and now it's basically saying like Lemonade, like show me what you got, of course. The hero power being very good with cards like Evil Genius and even the Faceless Corruptor, allowing you to always have a minion to sacrifice. Draconic Lackey. Yeah, what do you pick up? I guess Evasive Dragon it. You're just looking for the stats here. Crazed Netherwing, if the Battlecry goes off, could be face damage, but just picks the most overall solid choice. Faceless Lackey gives him an underbelly fence, average stats, nothing much to say about that. And Dark Skies deals with it just relatively well. But right, you can still play the Galakron, and oh boy, right, now you're ahead in health, on board, and everything. And this is where maybe Twin Tower would have been a valid argument, actually. Now the Faceless Corruptor, of course, can still take out some of this board, but not enough. And Sparrowhawk climbing back, 2-1 for Lemonade still, but Sparrowhawk getting his first win in this matchup. We didn't expect that to be happening so late. Still has to play the Galakron Rogue and the Highlander Mage. Lemonade, of course, stuck on his Galakron Zoo Warlock, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sparrowhawk played the Mage next. Seems like a very strong matchup here. For the Zoo Warlock, you have cards like Reno that can just clear off a board, similar to how Dark Skies does it. And we're gonna see this right now. And yes, he picks up the Mage, and I would say that Sparrowhawk's definitely favored in this matchup, and he might even be for the rogue. So definitely Lemonade's weak link here being the Warlock, but very strong starting hand for Lemonade, and it looks like a decent starting hand for Sparrowhawk as well. The question is just how hard do you want to go for those giants? Wait, giants are in there, right? Anyways, how hard do you want to go for your more impactful plays? Decides to get rid of the Luna, which is interesting. Malagos picked up, though, very impactful as well. I like Flame Imp on 1, of course, for Lemonade, but it's not his turn quite yet. But Sparrowhawk can't do anything, so you should just pass, right? Like, you can't play Book of Spectres yet. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Flame Imp, although Voidwalker is a valid argument in as far as that if you want to play Genius next turn, then that's definitely what you want to be Geniused. That being said, if the Doomsayer comes down, do you actually just play the Genius to pick up your Lackey? It's a thought. So yeah, Sparrowhawk, either the Book of Spectres to pick up some stats for his hand, well, some card draw for some stats for the future turns, or yep, decides to go for the book, knowing that he has the Scale Rider to deal with the Flame Imp. Puzzle box drop, there's the Giant. Didn't keep the Conjurer's Calling though, so the Giant not as impactful as would have been with that. Lemonade decides to tap. I would have actually not minded coining the Dragon Blight, because it's going to be a 4-1 plus 2/1 plus the 3/2 that you already have. So yeah, Scale Rider coming down to deal with the Imp. And I guess we're still going to see Dragon Blight now. And I want to say that would have been more impactful if you played it last turn. But it's a little bit also of a choice thing, because people that play their cards very aggressively in Zoo end up having to tap a lot late and still not play anything. So tapping a little bit earlier does of course give you some strong options. And decides to hit in with the Scale Rider despite having the Doomsayer up. And I think we're going to see a Faceless here. Just hit the face with the Imp, and then both Facelesses hit the Doomsayer. You swing the board around a little bit. Because you can't really afford to do nothing for an entire turn, so even if you're not dealing any damage, at least you're establishing board, and that's kind of what Zoo is all about, putting all the small things on the board. Malagos, of course, being ready already, and I don't see why we wouldn't see that, and we do see that right away. Nova is pretty good. Intellect is very strong, but the question is how necessary is it? Flame Strike is something to keep for later, where you basically can guaranteed clear almost any board. Picks up the Nova. Definitely a lot cheaper, but also not as impactful, so, you know, both valid in that regard. And Lemonade just plays the shield. Yeah. Catguard being picked up alongside the Power of Creation is already on hand, and plays the Giant, freezes the board, maybe clears the shield, although you don't even really need to because you have the Giant next turn. Does it anyways, and there's board space a little awkward here because Juggler Fiendish Rites doesn't even seem that bad, but you're only getting one juggle out of it. So I personally just... Wait, no you don't. You actually do get both juggles. That would work. You could also play something like Evil Genius, Dragonblight Cultist, Flame Imp, any combination. Really, any combination of any cards on his hand are pretty decent right now, which is why it is so hard now for Lemonade to decide what exactly he's going to do. Because there is nothing that specifically makes one option significantly stronger than the other. If his board wasn't frozen, of course something like Fiendish Rites, Grim Rally would have been the best impact play right away. Let's go Voidwalker, Fiendish Rites, keeping his face alive. Also, never to underestimate that, because there is an 8/8 on the board, and you probably don't want to get hit by that because you don't have any healing. Of course, that being said, if it gets taunted up this turn, then that's going to be hard to deal with either way. I'm going to see what Sparrowhawk comes up with right now. Barista could get him a second... He could play Fire Tree, Barista, get himself a second Malagos, but that also does leave the board very open. He has to deal with that right now. Because the 8/8 deals with the Taunt, or Hero Power Malagos. Then you can kill one Faceless if you do Hero Power Malagos. Which leaves you with a 5/4 and 4 2/1s on the board. That is, let me do some quick math here, 13 points of damage. That's a lot. Shooting Star, very good choice here potentially. Ice Barrier also protects you, but Shooting Star deals with 6 points of damage on the board right now. It's cheaper. I like it. Picks it up, and now we might still see a Hero Power and Malagos trade in there. Trade the Giant into the Faceless, and then taunt everything up. Well, by everything but the Fire Tree Witch Doctor. And yeah, now get through this if your Lemonade, of course, has with the Dragonblight Cultist and the Faces. No, we can't play this on the same turn. What is he gonna go for? Juggles is definitely not bad, but the thing is, you're not gonna be able to likely kill the Malagos. You're not gonna get enough Juggles to somewhat reasonably justify that. So we might just see the Faceless Corruptor come down on this Imp. We might also just see the Imp trade. Okay, so he decides to juggle now. Flame Imp, and decides not to juggle. It has to clear the board. Says that was a mistake, probably thinking he would have played Flame Imp instead, but honestly I don't even hate it, because you're not taking any damage. And you're not going to get any great juggles in this matchup, I would assume, so it's probably actually not even that bad. Argent Commander just straight up picked up, saw it, was like, oh, I can clear the board with this, and just went with it. Yeah, I mean, you gotta go for the lackeys at this point, right? Play the Egg, play the Genius, find a Cobalt Lackey to deal with one of those 4/2s at the very least. Maybe find a Goblin Lackey, does the same thing, kind of sacks one of the eggs, but that's not really as problematic. Crowd Roaster is a strong choice in theory, but you're not going to hold many dragons. Dragonblight Cultist comes down and does not deal with the board right now. Now, of course, still not necessarily the players worried more about the board. Arcane Keysmith could be a potential for Flame Ward, and that's what Sparrowhawk is thinking here. You get Ice Barrier instead, that's very strong still, and you can deal with most of the board as well. Well, about half of the board, but with that extra health from the Ice Barrier, it's not even that threatening. Hero Power takes care of the 7/1, and then the Argent Commanders just take out the 1/1s. And now, what are you gonna do with your Lemonade? I mean, you're not gonna be able to pull it off this turn with the effect, but you might need the stats, is the question, right? And okay, that Ringer isn't even horrible, but decides to put the stats down. And we're not seeing anything on Sparrowhawk's hand right now that can deal with it. And yeah, there's that Ice Barrier, and that's something you have to push through with your Lemonade. And Sparrowhawk not finding the answer, so he just has to play the Dragon Queen, get as much stuff on the board as he can. There's Malagos, and what was that? Rocknest Drake. Wait, Rocknest Drake, that's perfect, right? Yeah, well, perfect-ish. It's a little awkward because it's 1 in 3. But if it hits, it hits. It does not hit. Malagos coming down. Seems like a very strong card with Mage, of course. Not very spell heavy, this particular Mage, but also, if you eliminate now, you're all of a sudden on the defense, and that's never where you want to be as the aggro deck. And I'm surprised we haven't seen a tap quite yet, because you're gonna get that big Drake from the other dragon that you have there. So yeah, there we go, big Drake. I could have Grim Rallied after getting the Drake for 1/1 extra stats on the board. Oh god. If you're Sparrowhawk, you gotta think that there's gotta be a way you can play that Barista this turn, right? Yes, Frizz is nice and all, but that Barista getting an extra Dragon Queen Extraza in, and getting the extra Frizz. Right. Fair enough. Clears the board as best as he can. I think Kronks is a play here. You gotta get the Galakron out. And it doesn't even really matter that you're not getting the Devastation. You just gotta put down stats, you gotta get the Galakron. You're not gonna get much by playing a lot of 1-drops. So, gets the Galakron here. But you gotta look at that board, right? That is taps for the Drake, yeah. Then takes the trade there and there. He takes 8 just from what's on the board right now. So, it's also worth considering. Sea Giant, very powerful card. The question is just, is it too little too late? Cartoon Defender being picked up here for Sparrowhawk. That's healing and taunt, which might be something that he's looking for right now. Same can be said, of course, for the Rotten Apple Bomb. Why was I blanking on the name? And Dragon Queen is not likely to have anything that good right now. It could be a Dragon Ball Scorcher, but is that enough, right? So Cartoon seems like the most solid strategy here, because you can guarantee that you kind of prevent 2 attacks here. Well, actually, mostly preventing 1. Let's see, Cartoon Claw hits the Cartoon, and then one of the 1/1s hits the Cartoon. Gets, or that's 1 point of wasted damage potentially with the Claw in mind. If you're looking for lethals, that is. If you're, yeah, now let's do some math here first, though, right? Because that ain't really it. Ooh, Jiraxis, that's... And yeah, Sparrowhawk still has to find some answers here, because Lemonade is pushing it right now, and this deck, as opposed to the other one, doesn't really have as many Twisting Nethers, and yeah, you don't have Zephyrs available right now, so you have to... The Batter doesn't really deal with much. The Dragon Queen is likely not going to deal with much. The Rotten Apple Bomb could give you a little bit of a taunt and heal. You gotta do some math here, but I don't see a strong out for Sparrowhawk. You can get rid of the Kronks, obviously, and with some kind of hero power combination, maybe one of the dragons. But yeah, there's gonna be Alexstrasza, maybe into another Alexstrasza, that being the regular Alexstrasza, because you can't get the Dragon Queen off of the Dragon Queen anymore. But that would still be 3 points of healing, and we get the Azure Explorer, which is not very impactful, and another Malagos. Now, if only you had damaging spells right now. Spell damage plus 11, and nothing to do with it. And that is a 3-1 for Lemonade. Wow! So yeah, that Zoo Warlock, arguably still, at least with what Sparrowhawk was bringing, still very much the weak spot for Lemonade, but still, once you have to win against the deck 3 times, that's still tough, and Lemonade just... yeah, Sparrowhawk saying, I either had to draw Zephyrs off of the dragon into freeze or get a good dragon. So he decided to go for a good dragon here, didn't quite get it. So yeah, that is GG to the competitors. Lemonade winning very convincingly 3-1 against last year's European champion Sparrowhawk, and of course we're gonna hope to see Sparrowhawk next time. I wouldn't be surprised if he registered again. And for Lemonade, yeah, we're gonna see you in the semifinals. And to the viewers, is there anything you would have done differently if you were the competitors? And also, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this, and until next time, that's it.